Yes, we are back again. Finally, somehow. Uh, everyone is here to bring you more shit.
Insanity. Yeah.
Just
We're,
stuff.
we're gonna
Just
rot your brain even more. I mean, let's be real.
oh yeah, of course. You're gonna be like Charlie in Always Sunny with all the crazy notes on the wall. Just like, oh my god, everything they're talking about is connected. It's all leading to something.
Exactly.
Yes, the truly deep esoteric knowledge that only real ones understand.
Yes. In this episode, we're doing something. We're talking, discussing about something that I was actually around to observe, part of even. I think I could say.
Hmm.
I don't know about you. I think you were still a normie
Was
at
this
this
like
point.
2016-ish, 2015?
2015, 2016. Yeah.
Yeah, like I was just on the I heard whispers through the wired here and there, but I wasn't too in tune with it because I was still like, you know, average iFunnier if I'm not gonna cut that out of the So like I did hear things, but I wasn't like on that
Yeah.
end of it. Like stuff would bleed through, of course, because iFunny is quite the place. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so not involved, but at least adjacently aware of what was going on at the time.
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about, if you've seen the thumbnail and title and whatever the fuck. We're talking about the KEK phenomena, I guess, that happened in 2015, 2016. I really don't know what else to call it other than a phenomena, right? It was this weird series of events on the internet that, I mean, I still kind of struggle to really like comprehend, accept, like understand really, because it was just really weird, and it was like a constant, just thing after thing after thing after thing that like it was the closest I ever got to like genuinely believing in like magic or like supernatural forces of some kind, like that kind of um y- the concept of like synchronicity, that kind of stuff, because it was a lot of those it was a lot of that kind of stuff kind of combined into one weird amalgamated shit show. And but like it's also, it's all these coincidences. So it's hard still for me to kind of like, take that extra step, because I mean, one, it started with a bunch of memes, a bunch of literal memes, right? Like, um, so I guess anyone who doesn't know, um, Keck, uh, I guess a kind of multifaceted description, because Kek is both a ancient Egyptian god,
Yes.
um, a god of chaos, one of the eight Ogdoad, which is like I think kind of equivalent to the Titans of Greek myth, where they're kind of the gods before the gods, right? These are like the Ogdoad are the eight primordial gods from which basically everything arose, right? And Kek is one of these deities. Um, that specifically represents chaos before. Um, one of the epithets, I believe, is the darkness before the light, right?
Yes.
Um, so it's kind of the chaos before everything kind of settles, before order settles in. Um, this darkness before the universe formed. But it's also kind of, and I guess a pseudo deity, like I don't know what you would call it, because belief in KEK was somewhere between a joke and also legitimate, right?
Hmm.
In a way, I kind of consider KEK a modern iteration of stuff like Church of the Subgenius and Discordianism, right?
Yeah.
Um, with when it comes to Bob, uh, Eris, Jehovah One, these kind of like meme joke deities. But I think KEK, the cult of KEK, kind of took it a bit further because whereas those are purely jokes, are purely kind of subculture statements. This is both that and also legitimate because it formed naturally,
Yes.
right? It
And
wasn't
then people
created
started
by.
to, like, looking into things, people realized that it lined up with stuff that was just, that existed, like that old statue of the frog of Keck on that little pedestal with the little hieroglyphs that, of course, probably had their own meaning. They do, but just the look, the design of those hieroglyphs looking exactly like a person sitting at a computer. And, that other symbol that was, they understood it to be like, yeah, the
The
helix.
helix.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's interesting because this kind of formed out of the Aether. KEK is this deity of the internet, kind of formed on 4chan as a result of a confluence of events, right? So the whole story starts with the ubiquitous nowadays frog meme, of Pepe the Frog,
Yes.
which everyone kind of knows now as this just like a reaction image on image boards that comes out of a like 2005 comic that in like 2008 became like just a meme on 4chan and eventually spread across the internet. Has been a staple of the internet for over a decade now. Um, but then um, because during the 2015 political moment with Trump and the alt right and all the stuff that was going on at the time, specifically, which also comes out of 4chan and these kind of websites. Um, someone non noticed, right? That, hey, how we have this frog meme that's kind of like our mascot, and we also use KEK KEK as a kind of like a form of LOL, for those who don't know. It's just kind of like when you find something funny, you respond with KEK because it's funny. It's LO. It's like LOL. Um, which, if I remember correctly, that also comes. That's an early 2000s image board culture meme because of, I believe it was StarCraft or World of Warcraft. What are those games? If you're on Alliance, like, or at least it used to be the case. If I remember correctly, again, I might be wrong. It would like kind of scramble the horde sides text in chat. So whenever they would say lol, whenever they would type lol, it would come out as KK, as KEK. So it became kind of a meme to start using KEK instead of lol. So someone noticed, at this specific time, at this moment, hey, KEK's the name of this ancient Egyptian deity that's associated with it's a frog deity. Um, isn't that like weird, right? And then as people started digging more, like Cal brought up the statue that someone found, this frog statue that supposedly was a statue to KEK and had, yeah, these hieroglyphs that were, three hieroglyphs. One was a figure, the one next to it was what looked to the modern eye like a computer, and then next to that, like this helix symbol that was kind of taken to mean like meme magic, which we'll get to what that is in a bit. We're getting there. And then another common kind of image board culture staple was the get, which gets are basically when you post on an image board like 4chan, your post is assigned an ID number, a string of numbers, and it became a game over the years to kind of try to guess some aspects of what your ID would be. So say you have a thread that's like, well, a big example that has to do with this story is rolling gets um and there's this thread where they were rolling gets, and so when you roll basically you could do stuff like say dubs, and something happens, right? So that would mean if your ID has two of the same number repeating numbers, that kind of signified that you would get your request, right? Almost like a weird meme form of like magic internet ritual. And of course, it just went on, right? Trips if you got three repeating numbers, quads if you got four, etc. And so one of these threads in 2015 was a poster simply saying Trump will win, and the poster got all sevens. The IDs are 7 digits in length, and this user got all sevens for all of them. Crazy get insane, and so in conjunction with this, kind of image board cultural ritual that had developed over the years just naturally, it was found out that Keck was also a purveyor of these kind of like repeating digit kind of rituals. It was associated with these kind of things. Think of kind of like folklore of like when you like look at a clock and it's like 11:11. That's supposed to kind of be meaningful. To mean something. It's a kind of like a synchronistic number. Well, that's what Keck was associated with in ancient Egypt. And so, of course, finding that out, suddenly went from like this kind of mimi little, kind of luck game to being like you're invoking this deity, and it's like whenever you get a get or a trip, or especially that all sevens, that's Keck telling you this will happen. Like that is this deity, acting on your behalf to influence causality and probability. And so you get stuff like the discovery of this obscure like 80s Italian pop album. It was called Chatelet. That's right. Yes, Chatelet. There's a track called Chatelet. This obscure Italian pop track by a band called, or by a singer called Pepe, which was an acronym, an English acronym for, I believe it was point emerging, probably entering. So yeah. Yes. It was this album that was discovered, or this track, I mean, a single track called Chatelet, which is like a nonsensical word. It has no meaning. They even got in contact with the creator, and they just found like, yeah, no, like it doesn't mean anything. It's just this random word. So it became associated with, it's like this magical power word associated with Keck, and so they found this track. The disc has a picture of a frog on it with a magic wand. And so it's made by this artist called Pepe. Stands for point emerging, probably entering, which was kind of taken to be some kind of like like something about probability, so relating to gets and Keck's ability to manipulate probability as an aspect of kind of chaos. It's domain of chaos. And it was produced by Ass Art, which anyone who knows again anything about internet culture knows that's basically saying shit post. You know, um, that's a common term on the internet. So it's like ass art. You mean shit post? It's called Pepe, and it has to do with probability, like the gets, and it has this frog with a magic wand on it. And the label is magic sound. And it's made magic, all this stuff, all this crazy coincidences then they found the album, and the album was an image of the clock in front of Trump Tower. So that was like, holy shit! Like they like it was a sign.
Yeah, insane synchronicity with specific. Yeah, with that poster making those the seven gets, and all it all just sparked a insane. Oh yeah, now that we look at it and call it the Cult of KEK, like as you could see, it really coalesced into a most pseudo ritualistic or religious
Yeah.
movement, basically. And one funny thought that just popped into my head is we've probably been doing this for millennia. Like, I can guarantee you there was probably some group of Egyptians, like, 5,000 years ago playing dice games and being like, Kek bless this roll. Nothing ever changes.
No, yeah, but it was just interesting because I think this is, I mean, it was interesting in two regards because one, it was half again this half serious, half like shitpost, half joke, complete fucking joke that just had all these weird coincidences pop up and lead people to this conclusion of Trump being this kind of like divinely ordained figure, picked as the champion of this like fucking god that was discovered by a bunch of internet anons, which is that's just so weird to say, but like that was the mood. That was how it was all taken as.
And it did line up with some of the old Kek myths too, because like just specifically because
Yeah.
that got assigned to Trump, like Pepe and Kek the frog, Trump, and then but the god Kek had its antithesis in a serpent deity. Reference to that, it's all connected. But then everyone decided to be like, oh wait a second, that is Hillary. Like they assigned that like on account of all the stuff out there about what they've done. That it's just like, oh my god, it's the eternal battle of the serpent and the frog.
Eternal, the eternal battle. Well, I specifically remember it was there again, this like mythos was just forming naturally out of the internet, out of these happenings. Specifically, I remember that it was and something that's still kind of talked about in like internet conspiracy and like esoteric circles is that Kek was like the people's deity, and it was fighting against its enemy, which is the enemy of mankind really, but it was this deity known as Moloch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, if you've been on the internet or just like around like esoteric circles, conspiracy circles, whatever, Moloch, right? The bull, god of sacrifice and consumption and kind of um like modernity in a way, right? Like
Yeah.
Moloch has a history of a recent history of being associated kind of with like these conspiracies regarding like the like Bilderberg Group and like Bohemian Grove, right? It's kind of like Illuminati stuff. Like it's their deity. Like this is who the elites. This is what the elites serve, right?
Yeah.
This is but it has a common history, I think, in culture as like this kind of devouring god of technology and industry, right? You get Allen Ginsberg's um Howl, where you have the whole second part being about Moloch and describing and like Moloch and really Moloch as the modern world. And you see Moloch as in Metropolis, right? As this machine that the lower class are working on, or that they work with, right? This is this factory machine, and then it kind of becomes it takes on the visage of Moloch at one point, and consumes the common man, the workers, right? It's this machine that innocent human beings are being sacrificed to in the name of of industry and making the rich richer. Um, and so there is this kind of common history in culture, that it meets up, at around this time with this growing phenomena of Kek, the chaotic god of darkness before light that will, usher in a new age that will save us from the fucking Illuminati or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's interesting, right? You get this mythos forming naturally on the internet of these gods of the modern world, really, and their fight and all these little details and aspects of their mythology that I personally saw like growing in real
Yeah.
time, and it was so fascinating, right? Because I feel like we could, I genuinely feel like we kind of could have um watched, like we were on the verge of watching like the beginnings of a genuine new religion like forming on the internet. That kind of didn't happen though, right? It petered out around 2017, 2018.
Yeah, like that whole
Um,
Trump will win, and then he did. It's like, okay, like the big thing with a lot of those internet memers and like forum posters and stuff is that as everyone has been affected with the internet, they just kind of move on to the next thing. They just kind of, instead of maybe stopping and like assessing what just happened, they're just like, all right, what next? What's the next meme? What's the next shit post? Like it just
well,
kind of keeps churning on.
so what I think happened, honestly, is that you saw what I think really happened is that this era was still an era on the internet, and it was really the last gasp of the kind of mirthful era of the internet. The last gasp of like just shit posting and making fun of shit and not caring about anything really. The last gasp of the kind of irreverent culture of the 90s that really gave birth or spawned on the internet, right?
Mhm.
Um this kind of devil may care um attitude, you saw that kind of die after this, and I think that's why this died, right? Because this whole cult of Kek, meme magic thing requires, a sense of mirth. It requires a sense of not taking things too seriously. And the problem, right, is that things got serious after this, right? It's it's all fun and games when it's just making fun of your political opponents online, and like
Yeah,
gassing up this like old like fucking um real estate mogul dude who like says funny things on the news that like makes the people you hate angry. It's another thing when like suddenly there's like political, like there's battles between political like street gangs on the streets when people are being like thrown in jail, and there's attacks and like
yeah.
murders and like
People getting
riots
doxxed and
and
fired from
you
their
know
jobs and like
yeah.
labeled like with that, yeah, where suddenly it's like, oh, people, the other side becomes aware of it, of what's going on, and starts to label them as like, oh, they're terrorists,
And
they're dissidents, like
yeah, and
ruin
it's
their
it's it's
life.
it's not fun and games to them, and so like it became not fun and games to anybody, right? Because yeah, like you're getting doxxed, you're getting fired, you're getting blacklisted, you're getting thrown in jail, you're getting um things start to ramp up, across the political aisle. And so it's a thing suddenly, I remember, in like 2017, 2018, I distinctly remember, being on the boards, right? And this seeing this one anon post like this isn't funny anymore.
Yeah, yeah. And then like, oh, all the big media is suddenly like, oh, Pepe the Frog, frogs in general, that's white supremacist dog whistle, actually, and anyone who posts that is like should be, expelled from
but
society type of thing.
yeah, yeah, but like even then, even that was happening in like 2015, 16, but like it was funny then,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but then
It
it's,
it it it, it but then it all becomes not funny when everyone starts taking it so seriously. When lives start being on the line, and you're just like, well, I can't laugh at this, right? And like that's still the case today. We talked about we mentioned last episode the attempted Trump assassination. Like some guy like died, right? That's like
yeah,
serious. Like this isn't fun and games anymore. Like there's blood on people's hands now. So like you can't just you unfortunately you can't go back to the days of like haha, Pepe the Frog, lol, smug Pepe's, and making fun of people, the fucking cringe compilations or whatever. Like that just um that that just kind of feels inappropriate,
yeah, right.
right? Um so unfortunately that the mirth died, right? It died. The reverence died. No one's really irreverent anymore. Everything is so serious. Everything is so um it's it's serious business, right? Which is funny. I still remember the days when the internet is serious business was a meme, right? Making fun of people who took the internet seriously. But like now, like that's what everyone does,
Yes.
and I think it's kind of tragic because I think we need that mirth. I think we need that irreverence. I think if we as much as I understand, like kind of the instinct to take it seriously because things are getting serious. I mean, here in the States, you know, it gets mentioned quite a bit. Oh, like 60 something percent of people polled think we're like on the verge of civil war, and it's like, yeah, we probably are. So I think things are serious, right? And
Yes.
not just here, but like on a global scale, you have stuff with Russia and Ukraine and China with Taiwan, North Korea, South Korea, like all this stuff, and it's just again, it's so hard to not take them seriously because these are serious matters. These
Yes.
are very serious matters. But unfortunately, I think that's an unfortunate fact of the day, right? Of just the world we live in now is that 2016 was just the last time the internet was a fun place. Uh, Regardless, I think of what you think about like the politics of the cult of KEK and the meme magicians or whatever. Like, you gotta admit that like it was fun. Like it looked really fun, right? I imagine even from the outside in, like it was goofy, it was silly, it was fun.
Yeah.
Um,
It's comparable to, like, so many people can't take jokes and everything's, yeah, too serious. It's like those the good old days of just the banter, the just a bit of banter. Guys just saying stuff, and it's like, oh, and have to lose my job and everyone I know because said,
well,
dumb
yeah.
funny frog thing on the internet.
And then also you gotta remember too, like this was the last time you could really say whatever you wanted on the internet, right? That was part of why these movements became so big, is because you could still do that.
Yes.
Whereas like immediately following this, you know, all like the tech companies use this stuff as an excuse to clamp down, right? Fun and funny was just not allowed on the internet anymore. And if you wanted to say whatever you want, and if you thought that was bad, if you spoke out against like corporate fucking censorship of the internet, you were a Nazi, which is just
Mhm.
fucking insane to me, frankly.
Yes.
Um, you just seeing like the seeing the supposed anti-capitalist like sucking corporate cock and saying if you disagree with the corporations, you're a fucking Nazi. Like that's just so crazy to me, but like it happened, right? And in many ways that's still the case to this day, right? The internet is still this censored place where at least, well, no, not even, I was about to say, maybe at least if you get outside of like the big websites, um you can do that. But like no, we've seen in recent years that it's in many ways it's actually gotten worse, right? Because now you can if there are websites, little, edgy websites. They can be, you can bitch and
Just
complain to like Cloudflare
yeah,
and
just be
other service
outright
providers.
banned from the internet. Period. Like, oh, you just
Yeah,
IP banned for
you're just gone. You're just not allowed on the internet.
and then you always hear that rhetoric, that dumb rhetoric. It's like, oh, why don't you just go make your own insert thing here? Like, go make your own internet. It just keeps getting pushed further. It's like, oh, go make your own website if you don't like the thing. If you go make your own social media, but it's like to the point now where it's you can't like you don't no average person has the money or infrastructure to like compete
Yeah,
with the entirety of the internet itself that is out to
yeah.
you know
Because it's all owned by these mega corporations,
yes
right? And you know, it says a lot, I think, that like they'll listen to the supposed anti-capitalists who supposedly hate the corporations, even though they're like on their side and like in lockstep with them on pretty much everything. But like, the meme magicians don't get that luxury. Um, but so yeah, so even in that regard, it's not just that like all these big tech giants, Google and Facebook and everything just decided to clamp down and go no, nope, nope. You want to have fun? You want to shit post? You want to meme? No, you're fucking evil and we'll ban you forever.
yes.
Um,
And now with how things have gotten so polarized, they don't even have to do much themselves. They've turned a good chunk of the population into their own like net czars who will just do that for them. They'll just go and be the cringe mods who will clamp down on anything that's against their own beliefs and or, well, their own beliefs, quote unquote, as in the beliefs of the corpos above them. Oh, I gotta please the Reddit gods, so I'm gonna get you banned from everywhere.
yeah, it's genuinely insane that this is something that's become normalized. And it all really starts with this, with
Yeah.
just a bunch of funny, 4chan anons, thinking that Donald Trump is a funny guy and thinking it would be really funny if he became president of the United States and, shit posting and memeing their way to that outcome and like discovering a ancient chaos god along the way, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and of course, yeah, like because of all that stuff happening, the clampdowns and the it becoming too serious, like that kind of thing, yeah, it died out. Like I saw the last vestiges of it like popping up in the last elections or whatever. There anyway, obviously up here is a different story, but it still tries to happen up here, but obviously it's Canada, nothing's gonna happen. You can make all the Mad Max Bernier posts you want. I don't think it's gonna. It ain't gonna
no,
meme to the
yeah,
top like it did back then. But
no, yeah.
before that, it's just like other people trying. It's like, worked with Trump. Let's get Mike Bloomberg elected.
Fucking yeah, exactly. So
But obviously, it just dies out. It's like it's just like everyone's just like, okay, whatever. Like it's over. It's done. It's just,
yeah, this was something authentic, right? This was something real that just formed naturally,
yeah,
out of these like synchronistic coincidences. That really did almost feel like something more was leading us down a certain path.
yeah,
And that hasn't happened since. We haven't gotten that again. The people I think, yeah, like you said, yeah, I've tried to kind of use this kind of meme and magic for themselves, but because it's not coming from a genuine place,
yeah.
it
They're
doesn't
aware of
really
it at that point, and it's just like, we replicate the things. It's like, no, it's not the right time, place, synchronicities. It's not doesn't line up again. It worked for that for whatever strange reason. As or not, I don't know if we even know how or why, or it
yeah.
just did. It happened, and we're here out many years from
Well,
that happening.
so
It's like very different place now from when it was then. There are people still trying to hold on to the last embers of that, but it's
to the old ways.
The old ways, the old ways. Can we still get the gets? Can we still roll for this to happen?
The internet's such a different place now, though.
Yeah,
It's radically different. Um, even as much as people like to say that like 4chan and other image boards are like the last bastion of the old internet, like I agree to some sense, but in some other sense, even they've been irreparably altered by the events since then, right? I mean, anyone who knows can like tell you who's been around for a while can tell you like the quality of these places has just it's dipped immeasurably, with
yeah,
along with the rest of the internet. Like 4chan is not what it used to be, right? It's not. I mean, I remember some of the posts I would see, and like I occasionally go now sometimes, and it's just like it's just dog shit.
yeah.
it's just
And it has been
bad.
for a while now too, like so long where we're
Yeah,
just like, oh, what's the point even? Like, it's all the same
yeah,
slop. Like occasionally, there might be an interesting thread that will crawl its way to the surface, but then it's like that's it. Fades
yeah.
again, and
Occasionally you'll get something like the guy who like posted about Epstein's death like an hour
oh
before like the news
yes,
broke out. You'll still get something like that occasionally, but like otherwise it's just garbage. Which is sad because I remember. I mean, there's always been garbage on 4chan. Like, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It was never like a paradise of like intellect and like well thought out posting. But like there was that at some point. Like there was. I remember seeing like some really like excellently like thought out posts. Users who genuinely were like intelligent and like knew what they were talking about and could source their claims. They could find information that you wouldn't have really been able to find otherwise, even through like a Google search. They just were able to sniff this shit out like bloodhounds. Of course, a lot of those guys dipped from 4chan when the whole GamerGate thing happened, and there was the Exodus and to 8chan and 8chan. As much of a reputation as it has now, right? As this kind of like 4chan on steroids, boogeyman of the internet, that produced like Nazi shooters and shit. Like there was also like for quite some time, um even after this, some really good posting on 8chan. Some really again thought out, really provocative, discussions on that website. Whether it be 8pol or I think some of the other boards, like the Bureau of Memetic Warfare. What was again? There's a few other ones I remember that were really really interesting. That I again just stuff that I really don't think you could find anywhere else.
and they
And
nuked
it's
it
kind of
from the net entire.
it's yeah, exactly. It's just gone now, right? Like man, boards like slash 32 slash um that was a really good place. What was it? Psychopolitics. Yeah, psychopolitics. Like these amazing boards with such great posters, and all of that's just gone now. I would say scattered to the wind, but like I don't even know where I could find some of this conversation to this day now. Maybe the closest I can get it, ironically, is on Twitter now. Some of the Twitter anons,
Oh yeah,
who do occasionally, post some interesting stuff. But like again, it's not the same because Twitter fucking sucks and I hate it.
yes, yeah, it does
And
terrible,
I
but
really
at
wish.
least it did. You could say, like, oh, it is relatively worse, but it's not as like super insane censorship as it was, prior to Musk. Like
Yeah,
the quality
yeah.
of it, yeah, it's declined, but at least it's a little more free. I mean, you could
A little
argue
more
that, but
free.
you're not seeing as many people get nuked for just saying random things. And
Yeah,
it's like you know, like I'm
you're
seeing
right.
a little more rhetoric here and there that I never would have thought I would have seen on a place like Twitter. And I'm just like, wow, I'm surprised that's still up. I'm surprised there's people having these conversations. It's like, it's not that, you know, radical or whatever, but it's compared to what Twitter was. It's like, oh my god, you know, the
Well, I
whole
think.
the whole funny like, oh yeah, it's
Mm,
slightly more right wing than they ever would have allowed. Oh wow,
well, I think the thing with Twitter, I think, is it just has so many problems inherent to it. I hate its basic premise of like small, like what, 256 character,
oh
you
yeah,
know, posts, right?
yeah.
I
Now you
just
got to
I
pay if you want to do more, and obviously, regardless, you're fighting an unforgiving algorithm as you are everywhere on the net
Yeah,
nowadays.
it's
And
not conducive to conversation.
no, no, you just got to go and chirp in on other people who
Yeah,
did somehow manage to crawl their way out of the algorithm
yeah, and then
prison.
it's so another problem is that it's just so popular, right? Is
Yeah.
that
Oh yeah.
so you get like, you know, um, you're stuck with all these fucking soul cells who are
Yes.
just like the bottom feeders, the mouth breathing bottom feeders of like discourse, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's so many of them that like you get drowned out by just the most vapid nonsense that just has nothing to do with anything. Just and it's all about like, gotchas, right? It's just like, aha, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
You could say something intelligent, and then someone will be like, but this, and it's just something dumb that's nothing to do with anything you had to say, but like 50 million people will like it over your thing.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's just
and then of course there's
this.
the problem of bots too.
Oh yeah. That's just a whole
Like,
other nightmare of just completely flooded with. Yeah. It's everything's a nightmare. But yeah, no, it's that whole thing of like where some of these people you can't even distinguish them from a bot, arguably,
yeah,
and they're
honestly.
like they literally just parrot everything that you know their favorite influencer says, or like their favorite news media outlet says. It's, it's all just mimics at that point. They're not. It's like,
Yeah.
do these people even have ideas of their own? Like we've talked about this outside of this before, of people who they'll say something, they'll be parroting and holding up this like, yes, this ideology, this idea, this thing happened for sure factually, and then you ask them to think about it for 2 seconds and they completely like
Like
crumble.
screen,
They
yeah.
just completely like shut down if they have to give whatever they're championing more than
It's
like
just
an ounce of their
yeah.
mental faculties or lack thereof in most
It's
cases.
just to kind of like simplify what we're saying. It's just annoying. It's just
Yeah,
really
yeah,
fucking annoying that like I have to if I want to like catch up with like the latest in what people are saying and thinking, I also have to like deal with like 14-year-old syndicalists who think the Holodomor didn't happen. Like
yeah. It's
it's
just the
it's
most.
just annoying.
Yeah, it's just exhausting, and it's
Yeah.
like in some of these other places, like you could just like you're saying. I mean, I didn't experience it myself. I didn't never touched 8chan. Didn't hear about it until it got nuked, really. But um, sadly, but hearing about those, like you could just go and see a thread, and it's like the topic itself is like, oh, cool, interesting, like this is thought provoking, and you can click on it and there'll be like-minded people in there, like having a discussion instead of 99% slop post, one good
Yeah.
one good thought-provoking post, but all the replies to it are all just slop garbage, like disagreeing contrarians, or people are just like, no,
Yeah.
actually, CNN told me that this and this, and it's like, oh, this
Yeah.
mega corporation actually disagrees with your thing, and it's just
Yeah.
like,
And that's really what like sucks about it, because like I don't think like I don't hate people who disagree with me on principle, right?
oh
Like I'm
yeah,
okay with
yeah.
disagreement.
Like, that's
But like
sometimes that's nice. Sometimes to have good to have a discussion and see other people's points of view, and like maybe
Yeah,
you could both
but
learn something from the interaction instead of just
yeah, but
this
instead, it's
waste of
just
time, waste of mental resources to even read this. Like some of these things, it's just like, it's
it's
like,
just
why did my
annoying.
brain use energy to process this waste of packet of
But like
information that just entered?
there's not even anything to process
Well,
though.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
the problem I have.
yeah.
Is it's
That's the
just
better way to put it. Yeah.
it's not real disagreement. It's just some 16-year-old going, you disagree with BlackRock. That must mean you're a Nazi, and like that's not disagreement. That's just being like, you disagree with me, so you're bad. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, like, what's the problem you actually have with what I said? Like, what's again, like I said earlier, it doesn't help that Twitter and really most social media is just not conducive to like having a conversation. It's
Oh yeah.
conducive to like shilling and like farming likes or
Yeah.
whatever.
Or like rage bait content farming, or like people. There are a whole aspect of people who do that on purpose. Of like, oh, that's what
Yeah,
will get the most traffic and push me up to the top of the algorithm, is because
especially
I've caused a controversy amongst by saying the most brain dead thing ever.
yeah, especially now that you can make money off of this
Oh
stuff.
yeah, even worse now. Even worse, you make people
Yeah.
somehow make a career off of being a just
So
I don't even know.
yeah, exactly. But it makes me really miss, you know, the image boards and text boards and the old forums, right? Because, these were, they were conducive to having a long thought out conversation. You weren't limited in what you could say. You could say whatever you wanted, and there wasn't a character limit. You could write pages and pages of text just so you could really get your point across. Forum threads and image board threads are not like Twitter threads or like, you know, kind of threads on any other social media. They're not short snippets. They want you. They're designed to make you want to actually interact with the content of the thread with the other forum goers and anons that just um it just again is not the case in the web 2.0. um and it's not just that. You have the quality of the poster is just of the posters it's just so awful now. Like, again, go to like the Wayback Machine and go to like the archives of the Psychopolitics board on 8chan or Memetic Warfare, or even fucking God forbid poll, and you'll see like the quality, from back then, around this time, 2015 through 17. I want to say is kind of the heyday of specifically 8chan, but like it's so much better. It's so much more thought out. There's genuine conversation. There's genuine thought put into things. There's no, you know, like this kind of like schizophrenia that's I feel is almost taken over the net, like genuinely, right? This kind of genuine insanity. Um, it's just a better class of poster, a better class of website, and that's just all gone now. It died, at around this time too. That died around 2017, 2018, and it's just sad. It's just
Yeah,
really
no, it,
sad.
it
I
really
miss
is.
I miss how things used to be. I wish that how the internet used to work. But that's massive tangent from what the topic is.
Nonetheless, the consequences of what came after these golden ages, or the end of the actual
Well,
golden age.
yeah, it was the end of the golden age of the internet, right?
Yeah.
It was what do you call it? It was I'm imagining those like the digital equivalent of like those post westerns.
Oh
After the
yes.
heyday of the western, and then you had the post westerns, which is like about the last of the cowboys as like the industrial revolution is really coming toward the west, and you have civilization, right? The Wild West is dying, and that's what it felt like, really.
Yes.
That's what it felt like, and that's what it feels like today, still in a way. It feels like being one of the last cowboys in West that's died,
Yeah,
that's been settled and civilized, and it sucks. It sucks so badly.
there is no frontier and there's no wild lands. It's all
Yeah,
just
it's all been corporatized.
yep.
Um, but anyways, so going back to kind of the topic on hand, that was a kind of depressing tangent. Um, I guess now is we should kind of talk about like what is meme magic.
Right. Yes. That is where to start with that? That's such a strange thing where like obviously you go start from the very basics of like, oh, you know what a meme is. Like you've been on the
Yes.
internet. The fact that you're
Everyone knows.
here, it's it's funny image, video, text post, whatever that just happens to spread. Spreads quickly, becomes popular. Sometimes, a lot of times it's natural, as we've been seeing a lot more in recent time. It's very astroturfed, and suddenly it's just this meme everywhere that's just I'm not gonna go into the pressing topics again. I'm
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
like
The,
just again, just another parallel to like the degradation of things. It's like, oh yeah, or it's like, oh, most memes were all funny, and obviously there's some stuff you don't like, but it's just something that like a wildfire. Like someone made some little post somewhere, and it got posted somewhere else, and suddenly everyone's talking about it, and everyone's making spin-off posts about it, and it takes a life of its
yeah.
own away from the original poster, and like that, and to a point where the meme becomes
Well,
the thing, like the entity, like because the original poster is just gone. Like they just get left behind in a lot of cases, and it's the internet. You can steal any image you want, and what are you gonna get? Copyrighted or sued over a screenshot of some text post someone made, and it's like, yeah.
well, so I guess to to make it basic, meme magic, as I would describe it, and kind of as it was, as I came to understand it, back in the day, um, is the process of really meme magic is just it's the process of memetics itself, but as applied to the images we call memes today. Um, of course, um, as I think it's kind of common knowledge now, right? That the word meme came from it was coined by Richard Dawkins. Um, from his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene. It was basically he was describing the concept of um before it became funny images on the internet. Meme originally, as described by Richard Dawkins, it is just kind of gene, but like for ideas. Basically, is the best way I can put it. Right? Is how ideas spread. The method, or rather the concept of ideas that spread kind of almost genetically, right? Um,
Yeah.
the idea that ideas kind of need to be considered as living structures, not just metaphorically, but in some way, kind of literally, almost physically residing in the brain itself, and how they're spread almost psychically through the among the population via words and images. And so meme magic is basically this idea of simple, instilling this simple but powerful idea in these simple memes, as the internet commonly understands them, in these funny images, and getting them spread out there across the internet, so that your ideas get spread with them, right? So that's why the Trump victory in 2016 was like the meme magicians, like that was a dub for them. As they saw it,
Yes.
it was seen as, they got their ideas out there
Yeah,
to
and
the
it
extent that they
spread.
were able to influence the election.
Yeah, it spread into the culture of, you know, say America specifically, but it's spread even further than that at this point.
Yeah, yeah,
Like a global thing. Like it's affected the culture of the world. Like
yeah,
this, you know, bombastic populist leader of, one of the strongest nations on the planet. And it just, now so many people all over the planet know who he is, and they and meme about it still to this day. It's still happening. It's
yeah.
happening again right now.
It's so many people. I think it's important to note that so many people now know what 4chan is, what Pepe is. I mean, you saw the Hong Kong protests and riots, which were using Pepe as a symbol, much as the Western right, really, not just American, but the Western right as a whole was using Pepe as this kind of symbol of resistance. Um, so in these associations, I think a lot of people still are aware of them. They came to know about them.
Yeah.
This kind of fascinating phenomena, really, of the internet really bleeding out into the real world in a way it hadn't before. You'd had moments of the internet kind of coming into reality a bit before that. You had Project Trinology, right, in 2006 with the anonymous protests against Scientology, and I think to some extent Occupy Wall Street was a little bit of that. Not really, but some kind of extent. But I think this was the first time where like really like the internet became like internet and its culture be like escaped the containment, right? And like
Hmm.
suddenly you had boomers using Pepe, smug Pepe images, and like now it is still happening to this day, right? Now like kids are like using words like fucking like black pilled and red pilled and based and fucking like looks maxing and all these weird little like all these internet culture that like these esoteric little internet memes that were like confined to these weird little parts of the internet have now like they explode to the rest of the net, and then they explode into reality. It's been so weird to grow up and see that process of like seeing the internet spill out into reality and kind of merge with it almost, where there's it's hard to tell where the lines are anymore. But they've been blurred, they're almost not there.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a you know what I wanna read a certain part of a monologue from a certain character that is eternally relevant to this. Uh, Anyone who's played Metal Gear Rising, of course, you have Monsoon's famous monologue about memes, and you could look at part of it of we are all pawns controlled by something greater. Memes, the DNA of the soul. They shape our will. They are the culture. They are everything we pass on. Expose someone to anger long enough, they will learn to hate. They become a carrier. Envy, greed, despair, all memes, all passed on. Keeps going on stuff about war and mocking Ryan, but still, that little part of it, the whole acknowledging that memes have like our cultural thing, a thing of the soul at this point. Arguably, you could say it's a pseudo religious thing, even if it's not one concentrated like under one deity, but like it's a be it from a like a ritualistic standpoint, that whole gets thing is continues to this day, has a life of its own of
Oh
just
yeah,
any
yeah,
thread you look at will have someone rolling for gets for
yeah.
some event to
Yeah,
happen. Like that's
like I
just
said, it's always
stayed.
been a part of board culture, right?
Yeah,
it's
and
it's it's a
it's
staple. People still use KEK, as a form of LOL. People still obviously use Pepe images. Um, it's all these things are again. That's what made KEK so viscerally real, is that these were all just genuine aspects of internet culture.
yeah,
And to
yeah,
to
just
see that
how
they all
memes spread.
coincidentally. tied to, but to see how they all like coincidentally tied together this way in regards to this mythological, mystical, supernatural figure, and kind of this form of magic that I'm sure most of the people at the time had never even heard of before.
Yeah,
It's so fascinating.
it really is. It's internet being one of the greatest social experiments of all time, arguably more than just a social experiment.
I was about to say it's a fucking MK Ultra experiment, but
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
that's for
yeah.
another episode.
But yeah, it's
But I guess this whole phenomenon, this whole period of time, kind of what I witnessed personally, being there, quote unquote, on the ground, right, on the boards, and just on various places on the internet where this was kind of occurring. It's something that in a way kind of haunts me to this very day. Like I kind
mhm,
of it's a mystery. It's something that I think about every so often, It's something I
yeah.
still think about. It's something that I kind of wonder, like, and I guess all I have left is to leave these questions for you, the audience, which is just, was/is KEK real? Were these coincidences genuinely something more? Or were they just a bunch of internet losers being weirdos, putting together things, chasing phantoms? Or was there genuinely something more to it? Was there genuinely um magic of some kind at work, right? Or something like it, some kind of synchronistic quantum, I don't know, whatever pseudo bullshit. Um, because I think one of the other things I want to leave off on is something I learned a bit later, not too much later, but when this was happening, there's only one place you can go to try to understand it. I thought, at the time, and that's of course X.
Yes.
That's of course X. That's the 4chan's paranormal board. Um, also 8chan used to have a really good X that was so much better than 4chan's X because they had the common decency to make the fringe board, which was all the like divination and other nonsense. That goes there. All the genuine spooky shit goes on X. But never mind that. And it's where I learned about the concept of chaos magic, which is a form of magical practice that I believe started in like the 70s. Um, and I'm not. I know a little bit about kind of like esoteric magic, mystical, like subculture or history. Not super um what do you say? I'm not super like knowledgeable. I want to get more knowledgeable, but I'm not really super knowledgeable. So my understanding is that it kind of comes out of like Aleister Crowley's stuff, his kind of approach to magic, which was, as I understand it, a kind of novel um approach to magic. He took stuff from other magical um esoteric traditions, but he mixed them and he kind of made something new and kind of looked at the concept of magic in a new way, that I don't think had really been done before. Um, and eventually, it kind of this kind of Crowleyan Thalamite type of, you know, this kind of disorganized, individualized form of magic kind of forms with kind of starts to merge with the counterculture that comes out of the 60s, Discordianism, punk, postmodernism, the writings of guys like Robert Anton Wilson, and slowly but surely chaos magic starts to form out of this kind of primordial soup of the late 20th century. Um and one of the core aspects that I understand of chaos magic is the concept of sigils, magic sigils. So there's this practice where you kind of make your own sigils, and you an image that kind of has your will imprinted upon it, and that the universe then kind of enacts whenever it's drawn, basically wherever it's placed. And then eventually I learned, of course, of the I believe Grant Morrison came up with the concept. Again, I could be wrong, of the hyper sigil, right? Which is this concept of an image, not just an image, but a narrative, right? And what else could you call? I just that this is what I was kind of taught on X, I guess, by these weirdo internet magicians, which is that they saw, and I think it's an interesting way to look at it. The whole KEK, the formation of this mythos and mythology, naturally online as a kind of um, self-forming hyper sigil. This narrative, associated with images, imbued with this power, this will of all these anons. Um, and this hyper sigils are designed to manipulate reality in a big way, more so than normal sigils. And that's essentially what it seems that the whole KEK phenomena was this kind of um cybernetic, self-reinforcing hyper sigil, that I guess I could only also describe as a hyperstition in a way too, which is another concept that I learned about sometime at around this time, I believe, or sometime later. Which like it is basically can be described as a fiction making itself real. So this kind of hyperstitional hyper sigil, um, that was messing with and altering reality in the course of history, really, in this big way. Something that was seen not, and it wasn't just Trump. It was Brexit and all these other events that were seen as impossibilities, that like the system had been rigged in a certain way that it wasn't possible. People were all drones following this programming, and it wasn't possible for these things to happen, and then they did, and it was attributed to this powerful magic, this hyperstition, this fiction, these memes made reality, this magic of a sort. And then of course there's of course the last thing I want to leave the audience with, which is another concept thought up by Grant Morrison, and kind of explored in his Hyper Sigil trilogy, if you've read those. But I think is was better kind of theorized about and understood on 4chan, also on 4chan's co board, and which I will leave as the as a teaser for the next episode, and for what we may be living through right now, what we may have been living through for almost a decade now, which is of course the concept of the hyper crisis.
There's one part of this that we actually have not brought up yet, which does tie into all of this, and it ties in especially the last episode, hypersigils, these things making memes or fiction into reality. We haven't the prophecy of KEK around this time.
Yes.
Around this time, 2016, all that before the election. It was still like what June 2016 was some Canadian anon made the prophecy of KEK that still lives on and still gets posted to today. Just an ominous, unelaborated upon kind of limerick, a prophecy. It is a prophecy. We call it the prophecy of KEK. that is just a list of obscure little sentences, and just say, you know what, I'll just read it. That'll be, think of it. So, Canadian Anon in 2016, it's like, it will happen when the weather cools. That's when they'll make their move. The plans laid long ago before the founding of America, and older still, will come to fruition. They're trying to force God's hand. Watch for these signs. 3 branches will become one. An island will drift away. A killing bolt will shine in the night, but will not kill. The star will gorge itself on clay. Idols will speak and move about. The black flag will fly above the dome. The belly of the dragon will drip water. 2 voices will call out in a silence that all will hear. A rock will stand on 7 hills. The ravens will starve. Air will leave its cave forever, and the rod and the ring will strike. This man left this on a board 8 years ago, and as time goes on, people have very quickly come to attribute many of these events to actual things that have happened since. Like, almost to a, like, some of them are undeniable, like that it's just, like, this can't be interpreted as anything other than this specific event happening. Like, the bear will leave its cave forever. Everyone's like, oh yeah, 100%, that's the Russia invasion of Ukraine. Like, that's, that can't be interpreted as anything else. The island will drift away was Brexit. We've, there are different interpretations of some of these, but there still is, at least 1 or 2 possible candidates for what those things come to mean.
And I guess part of the reason why I didn't bring that up really is because it's just,
of course it's silly. But it's still part of the mythos, kind of. Like someone during this time left a little silly prophecy.
Yeah, it's part of the mythos. It's just so vague and
of course.
Kind of like it comes out of nowhere, right? And it's difficult for me to really find really compelling, just because of that. I think it's just because I think really what's more compelling to me is the stuff like the Trump will win, get all 7s, and just the aspect of this meme magic, this concept of fiction becoming reality, because I think in a way that ties more with what we were talking about last episode in terms of
that's why I wanted to bring it up, is that it does do a little loop back to the whole concept of making making a prophecy real, like through the hyperstition, like, obviously not us, but just the people will start to latch on to some of these things and be like, oh my god, like this was real, like, he is Lisan al-Gaib thing, like this type of like, oh my gosh, this Anon was right, he knew. And it's just like, it's vague enough, but there's still that little internet mythical aspect of like,
for sure,
that it's still carried on 8 years later, along with the whole KEK phenomenon.
I think my issue with it though is that it's hard to say, oh, he was right, because it's so vague, right? It's like that's an issue common with prophecy, right? They're so vague that it's really hard. It's really impossible to say whether someone was right, because it's just like, well, I don't even know what the hell this stuff is referring to.
It's like when you look at like Nostradamus's like predictions of things, history, everyone's like, oh my god, he was so he was so right, he was so real about this thing. And it's like, no, he was pretty vague. And and some of the stuff he said, it's like, so much time has passed that it's like, that could have just happened by probability, like,
and that's why, again, I was saying, I think like the the other stuff regarding the whole KEK phenomenon is, I think, far more compelling because you have, the all sevens, which again could be taken as this guide saying, yeah, this is going to happen, and then the post itself was Trump will win. That's not vague at all,
That's very
right?
just specific, and
That's
it did happen.
that's concrete. It's finding the Chatelet single, with all these, like almost impossible to interpret as any other way than, kind of references to image board culture, to all this, Pepe Keck stuff, like decades before it would even form,
Mhm.
and then to have the album cover be Trump Tower again, another kind of um the clock in front of Trump Tower. I mean, another kind of way of another kind of interpretable, this God is saying this will happen 100%, right?
Yeah.
All this stuff. I think that's far more in line with that. I think that's far. I think kind of like I was saying, in a way, memes. They're again this hypersigil that was accidentally formed by the internet. These kind of ideas that were put into it by the anons, these subconscious kind of desires and wants, right, were placed into this hypersigil, this kind of mystical narrative, that they wanted to, wanted to affect reality with. And I think in a way that has a lot more to do with what we were talking about before, because it's not a prophecy. It's not a
Mhm. Yeah.
capital P
Yeah.
prophecy. But I think what makes it really connect is this idea, right, of, like we were talking about last episode, the kind of prescience of the Dune universe being almost a metaphor for the ability of human beings to imagine possible futures, to um which of course would be in spot, which would be, how do you say, would include the desires of the person imagining them, the what the person, kind of subconsciously even expects out of the future, what they think is possible, what they think is plausible. Um, their hopes and their dreams, really. And so I think in a way, this whole phenomenon is exemplary of this idea from the Dune movie, the first Villeneuve movie, explicitly expressed in the very beginning. Dreams are messages from the deep, and I think that's what was going on here. That's kind of the question I want the listeners to go away with, is all these subconscious, ideas, flowing through these anons, through the internet, through these memes, through these images, this narrative, these hypersigil, was this just, again, a bunch of, internet anons being shit posty jackasses on the internet? Or were these messages from something else lurking in the deep, contacting these anons, leading them, and by extension, all of us, the rest of the world, down this path that we're on, that we've been on for, again, almost a decade now? And so I really want people to think about that, because as crazy as it sounds, as bad shit as it sounds, I don't even believe it. I don't even believe it, right? But sometimes I find myself thinking, what if, reality just seems so crazy these days? It really does feel like some kind of rift was open between dimensions, and now, the world of reality and meme and fiction, it's all fusing together. The internet and the real world, meet space, and the information superhighway, it's all coming together in this, like, serial experiments lane style, and it's not good.
No, no,
Frankly,
that's we
it's been a
are.
disaster.
Well, R is a strong word. We seem to be spiraling towards a hyper crisis of sorts.
Yes, yes, yes. It does appear that way, and I guess what can we do about it?
Mhm.
Okay, we'll leave that up to you to ponder. If you think any of this nonsense holds any water, if you're a genuine, magic believer practitioner, not, not to I guess shit on your beliefs or anything. We're just, I'm just, at least, I don't know about, I can't speak for Cal. I'm a, I'm not, like I've said before, I'm not a believer, but
Mhm.
sometimes I find myself pondering because that whole experience was just so weird, and reality these days is so nonsensical. It borders on being fictitious almost, that I can't help but wonder.
Huh. That just we got to come up with a term for that now, because now that just like I don't know if I believe, but I don't know if I don't. Like you could say I'm like some agnostic, but towards memetic religion and warfare and like that's got okay. We'll come back to you guys with a term for that. That's actually something I'm gonna think
Well,
about now, because
I
that's
think, yeah, we'll explore about, now that I'm thinking about it, we could explore this in a fourth episode, I think,
hmm,
of this arc. I think it would help to talk about kind of the more grounded scientific version of this kind of stuff, which is, psyops and psywar, this idea of, wars of ideas. The idea of war of ideas is kind of funny to
yes,
say, but like all this stuff that comes out of um you know the early Cold War, um and these kind of weird, really weird ideas, but also a lot of it grounded, in just facts of how, you know a lot of the Cold War was a war over perception, like the perceptions of the masses, and how that really affected history, and how the reality of that history is perceived even to this day. So I think it would be a good idea to get into that stuff, discuss
yes,
that stuff in
actually,
the fourth episode, and then maybe in a fifth episode we'll have to do some reading up, but maybe we can get into the origins of the concept of hyperstition, the
ooh,
CCR,
yes,
all that weird stuff. But we'll see about that
yeah.
because that is a whole rabbit hole into itself.
It is on the list regardless. We'll get to it at some point. We have plenty of little ideas of topics, but
Yeah.
for now, like, yeah, we're gonna get into the coming hyper crisis and the the psyop war. There's plenty of. We'll take you on a nice journey
War of the
through
mind.
the balkanization of reality, as has been coined by, well, you.
I was so real for that one.
You truly were. But yeah, I mean, I think that might be a good spot to end this one
Yes.
today. We'll be back pretty soon with some more.
Yes. We'll be back. This has been Layer One.
Bye bye. Don't
We're
let
insane.
the meme war get you killed, I guess.
We're we're insane. We're so bad shit.
Tap the Schizopunk sign. Yeah, I think that the name says it.
Well, yeah. I guess in fairness, yeah. We try to make it clear that we're batshit insane, so that so like it's your fault. Whatever happens, it's your fault. You don't know this, but you actually signed a psychic waiver in your dreams, saying that whatever happens, because you like whatever influence that happens on your mind, be from listening to Layer One, like we're not responsible for that. That's all on you, dude. Bye.
Why?